The room fell away as her heart raced, his touch igniting a spark that flickered dangerously close to a flame. Their gazes locked again, and suddenly all the noise in her mind quieted. The doubts, the fears, the chains holding her to a life riddled with expectations. Cleo leaned closer, surrendering to the luminous magnetic pull between them. A soft pulse thrummed in the air as Malik moved even nearer, his scent enveloping her, intoxicating and sweet. "You are fierce, Cleo, unyielding, and you deserve to embrace that," he whispered, breaths mingling in the fragrant space between them. His lips brushed against hers, a touch so gentle yet tenacious that it made her heart flutter wildly. As they drew closer, the rest of the world faded into oblivion. The chaos, the noise, the life they were stepping away from slipped into the background, leaving only them in a space alive with unspoken promises and shared dreams. The kiss deepened. There's a delicate chaos as passion flared, neither wanting to sever the connecting tether sparked in that fragile moment. Cleo's heart raced, overwhelmed by everything that lay ahead, yet inspired with the certainty lighting in Malik's gaze. A few more moments savored, the storm outside finally descending, leaving them ensconced in a world where the future lay dazzling before them. As they pulled apart, Cleo whispered, "What comes next, Malik?" Their faces remained inches apart, breaths mingling in that exquisite limbo where everything seemed possible. Mischief gleamed in his eyes as he replied softly, "Everything we want, Cleo. Everything we deserve." Scene 54, restoring the balance. The candlelit room glowed like a heart pulsing in the darkness, shadows flickering across the richly adorned wallpaper. A low hum of conversation drifted through the air from the ballroom beyond, where society mingled amongst silks and whispers. Cleo Seke stood before the tall mirror, touching the edges of her silk gown, its deep indigo color complementing her skin and flowing like the night sky against her contours. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" her friend, Marisol, questioned, adjusting her own velvet shawl. The challenge in her tone urged Cleo to turn away from her reflection and face the uncertainty mirrored in her friend's eyes. Cleo's gaze hardened, her spine straightening. "I need to reclaim my place, Marisol. Hiding in the shadows won't do." Marisol glanced at the bustling crowd beyond, crammed into the grand hall. "And what if they haven't forgotten? What if?" She faltered, not daring to finish. A silence enveloped them, thick with past scandals and betrayals, before Jackson, a dapper figure with a commanding presence, interrupted them. "What ifs are the shackles of the timid," he said, his voice low and assured. There was something magnetic about Jackson. He emitted warmth, a beacon for those navigating the treacherous waters of high society. "Cleo, you're not invisible. You're stronger than they realize." Just then, a sudden burst of laughter erupted from the other side of the elegantly decorated door. "If only she hadn't run off with that brute," a voice ricocheted through the air, laced with disdain. Cleo's heartbeat quickened. She knew they were talking about her, the remnants of the engagement that had once defined her. "I am not my past," she stated firmly, a spark igniting in her chest. Her determination was palpable, setting the stage for her resolute stride toward the entrance. As she crossed the threshold into the ballroom, the atmosphere shifted, heads turning with the weight of old judgments. Malik Orpheus stood at the far edge of the room, his presence both commanding and enigmatic, his eyes sweeping over her with an intensity that made her pulse race. "Quite the entrance, don't you think?" he remarked softly, sidling closer, his tone wrapped in layers, teasing out the tension swirling between them. He wore a dark suit that sculpted his frame, accentuating the way he moved, a mixture of grace and latent power, like a panther poised to strike. Cleo inhaled, her senses piqued by the musky scent of sandalwood, mingling with the floral notes in the room. "I'm conscious of the weight of their gazes." Her brows knitted, but there was defiance in her voice. "What would you have me do?" "Hide," he countered, leaning slightly toward her, the distance between them charged yet intimate. "You're here to restore balance, not retreat. Show them the woman they underestimated." Cleo's eyes softened, acknowledging the truth within his words. His encouraging smile flickered like a candle's flame in that dark room, but the laughter echoed again, slithering into their moment. "Look at her, still trying to scramble back to the top. Isn't it tragic?" one socialite tittered nearby. Cleo clenched her hands, nails digging into her palms. Malik reached over, brushing his fingers against her wrist ever so slightly, grounding her in the chaos swirling around them. She matched his gaze, and in that instant, the air thickened with unsaid words, connecting them deeper than the whispers that surrounded. "Let's show them," Malik murmured, the fire in his voice igniting her spirit. With a quick nod, she straightened, the tension in her posture dissipating. Marisol, standing nearby, watched with a mixture of awe and pride. Cleo took a steadying breath, feeling Malik's warmth seep into her, a promise intertwined in the fabric of familiarity and newfound respect. They stepped into the throng together, laughter and music engulfing them, but Cleo felt liberated in Malik's presence, aware of the electricity buzzing in the air between them. "Sometimes they need a little push to see you for who you truly are," he whispered, brushing his thumb along her wrist again, igniting a flush of heat that rose to her cheeks. Amidst swirling silks and chattering tongues, as they danced and engaged, every shake of her dress echoed her rebirth. Underneath it all, her heartbeat matched the rhythm of new beginnings, an uncharted territory illuminated by Malik's unwavering gaze. "I am here to stay," Cleo thought, fueled by empowerment and the fierce connection she felt with him as they moved forward together, their journey intertwined in palpable intensity. Scene 55. A tattered heart. The rain tapped insistently against the cobblestone streets, the water pooling in shimmering rivulets that snaked through the drainages. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and distant blooms, a stark contrast to the tension thickening in the room. Cleo leaned against the window frame, her arms crossed tightly over herself, watching the storm unfurl like the turbulence inside her. "Is it ever going to stop?" she murmured, more to herself than to Malik, who was pacing the rich, dark wooden floor, his long fingers rubbing his chin. "It always does, eventually," Malik replied, pausing mid-stride to look at her. The concern etched across his brows deepened as he studied her, the way her normally vibrant expression seemed to be smudged by the remnants of her engagement's betrayal. "But is that really what we're talking about?" Cleo turned to face him, the flickering candlelight reflecting off her damp lashes, a fragile glimmer amidst her uncertainty. "What do you mean?" "The rain is just rain, Cleo. It's a distraction, a pretty one, yes, but a distraction nonetheless. You can't hide from what's right in front of you." His words dripped like honey, smooth yet laced with a firmness that made her heart race. She scoffed, crossing her arms tighter. "And you believe standing here rehashing old wounds will help?" "Perhaps it's time to let new air in then," he said, his voice low, carrying the weight of an invitation. The way he stood, half-shadowed by the flickering candles, drew her eyes to the slight curl of his lips, the flash of something heated beneath his surface. "And if that air is sour?" she challenged, shifting her position slightly, as if preparing for a retreat. "Then we clear the room." Malik stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking in the echo of unsaid words. "But we won't know until you let it in." Cleo blinked back a wave of vulnerability that threatened to spill over. The storm outside rumbling echoed the tempestuous feelings brewing within. "How do you do that?" she asked quietly, her voice barely rising above the drumming rain. "Do what?" he pressed, taking another step so that his presence filled the space between them, warm and certain. "Make me want to be honest when all I want is to lash out?" she breathed, feeling every syllable weigh heavy upon her. "You should know by now I'm perfectly capable of sharp words and empty threats." A hint of a smile danced on his lips. "But here you are, wishing to reveal what's in your heart. That's growth, Cleo." His eyes sparkled with a teasing warmth, making her pulse quicken. "Or is it just the storm creeping in?" "Fine. The storm is in my heart," she said, allowing a smile to weave into her tension. "I am utterly marooned in its fury." "So why not weather the storm together?" Malik offered, his voice entwining softly around her. "I can help you navigate the wreckage." "And how do you plan to do that?" Cleo asked, amusement momentarily dispelling the pulse of hurt simmering beneath her skin. With a sly grin, he glanced around the room, taking in their surroundings as if plotting a theatrical escape. "Let's start by throwing some shadows into the light. You tell me your greatest fear, and I'll share one of mine. I guarantee it'll be alarming." "You think that will help?" she scoffed, laughter bubbling up amidst her resentment. "What's life without a little chaos?" he countered, his playful bravado igniting her curiosity. It sounds less daunting than it is, she said, eyeing him skeptically but unable to resist the pull of intrigue. Rain continued to pummel the panes, the world outside becoming a vivid blur. True, but danger often leads to discovery, Malik said, inching closer, the air between them electric. In that fraught moment, Cleo felt not just the weight of their stories, but the thrilling potential of uncharted territory, a consequence of their intertwining destinies. Fine, but one at a time. Cleo's heart raced, igniting in her another sense she couldn't quite label hope. Deal. Malik's smile softened, his gaze lingering on her with gratitude and something else, a promise. You lead the way, and I'll follow. As thunder rumbled in the distance, Cleo took a deep breath and whispered, almost inaudibly, I fear that I'll never truly escape the past. Malik's eyes darkened with understanding, and in that shimmering moment, they both held tightly to the storm, knowing it was just the beginning. Scene 56. Renewed hope. The rain drummed against the windows of Malik Orpheus's office, a rhythmic echo that melded with the muffled voices of the bustling streets outside. A storm had rolled in just as dusk began to fall, wrapping the city in a shroud of billowing gray clouds. Inside, the scent of cedar mingled with the rich aroma of roasted coffee, warming the air. Cleo Seke sat near the window, a flickering lantern casting a glow around her, illuminating her features with a soft blush. Her thoughts, previously tangled in a web of fear and uncertainty, began to unravel under the weight of newfound clarity. Malik, she said, her voice threaded with a mix of apprehension and admiration, do you think the storm will pass by morning? He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, his posture exuding both strength and ease. Storms always pass, Cleo. It's the calm that follows that's worth waiting for. His gaze, dark and piercing, locked onto hers as if daring her to delve deeper, to confront the tempest within herself. Cleo's heart raced, a subtle flutter of intent growing stronger between them. I've spent so long waiting for the storm to clear without realizing I can step out into the rain, she admitted, her words touched with an unexpected resolve. Perhaps it's time we both stepped outside, Malik countered, moving closer, the space between them narrowing, suffused with unsaid emotions. There's more out there than we've both allowed ourselves to grasp. As he spoke, the thunder rumbled like distant drums, and Cleo felt the atmosphere thicken with tension. She could see the shadows flickering in his eyes, the haunted edges of his past curling at the corners of his thoughts. What do you want, Malik? What do you really want? She questioned, challenging him to reveal more than just the facade of the charming, protective sibling. Standing before her now, his expression shifted, carrying the earnest weight of his unvoiced struggles. I want to protect you. I want. He hesitated, the vulnerability cracking the tough exterior. Love? She pressed, a challenge sparking in her voice, glimmering like a forbidden dream. The word hung between them, fragile yet invigorating, expanding the space where their hearts could merge. Malik took a breath, the storm outside a fierce counterpoint to the calm they sought. Love is a treacherous game we both know too well, but it's also a chance at renewal. Cleo felt her breath hitch as she stared into his eyes, seeking the truth behind the playful mask he always wore. What if it's not just a game? She asked softly, trying to decode the sincerity fleeting across his features. Then let's stop pretending, he murmured, his voice low, like a husky whisper curling through the air, a challenge, a promise, an invitation. The moment shimmered, hanging on an edge between friendship and something more explosive, more exhilarating. In a swift movement, Malik closed the distance between them, his hand brushing against her cheek. The warmth of his touch ignited something deep within Cleo, a spark of longing, fierce and undeniable. She leaned into his palm, the gesture delicate yet filled with purpose. Their breaths mingled, the low rumble of the storm providing dramatic punctuation to their heartbeats. Cleo, he breathed her name with the weight of all their shared experiences, the laughter, the sorrows, and the secrets. Let's not let this moment pass us by. She swallowed hard, a mix of trepidation and exhilaration tugging at her heart. Their eyes locked, and in that charged silence, she saw the unfathomable depths of Malik's soul, reflecting a shared yearning that both thrilled and terrified her. He leaned in, capturing her in a kiss that was both fierce and tender, alive with the promise of renewal as the storm raged on outside. The kiss deepened, electric and consuming, breaking down the walls they had so carefully constructed. Cleo felt the world around them fade, each loved betrayal, lingering doubt, and painful memory dissolving into the space they inhabited together. As they parted slightly, both gasping for breath, she found solace in the undeniable truth. In this moment, surrounded by chaos, they had chosen each other. With a soft, lingering smile, Malik murmured against her lips, "Let's chase the storm together, shall we?" Cleo nodded, a newfound confidence surging within her. Together. It was not just a promise, it was a vow. Scene 57. The Reckoning. The sun hung low in the sky, casting addled shadows across the cobblestone streets of Westminster. The air was fragrant, with scents of spiced bread from the nearby bakery, mingling with the savory aromas of evening meals being prepared. Yet there was a strange weight hanging over Cleo Seke as she arranged the tables for tonight's charity gala in her home. The clattering of utensils and the murmur of excited guests initiated a backdrop for her thoughts, a subtle reminder of the lightness that once colored her life. Malik Orpheus leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her. Even in this seemingly mundane task, there was a charged energy between them. Cleo adjusted the silverware with precise movements, her expression taut, revealing both her resolve and the unexpressed turmoil boiling beneath the surface. "Cleo, you don't have to do it all yourself," Malik said, allowing a slight lift of his brow to challenge her determination. She paused, the weight of his gaze capturing her, as if illuminating her hidden fears. "It's my responsibility, Malik. It's my family's charity event. I can't let my life in shambles affect my family's reputation." He stepped forward, a dark figure in the gathering dusk, the dim light softening the edges of his stern features. "Responsibilities or not, you deserve to be cared for too," he said, his voice low and earnest, something tugging deeper in his tone. Her heart raced, the truth behind his gaze scraping against her guarded facade. "And what would you know of deserving care?" she retorted, masking vulnerability with aloofness. An unsettling silence filled the space, the tension crackling between them as guests buzzed around the grand hall, oblivious to the undercurrent spinning. Malik's eyes narrowed slightly, and he stepped closer, invading her personal bubble in a way that made breath hitch in her throat. "More than you think, Cleo," he murmured, the intensity of his voice refusing to fold under her defiance. "That day—" "Stop," she broke in, her voice strained as memories rushed through her like frigid water. "I can't think about what happened that night. I won't." "And yet it haunts you." "It haunts me," Malik stated, a bitterness lacing his confession. Their frustrations turned into something palpable, thickening the air between them. Despite the shimmering lights and laughter mere feet away, here the world narrowed to just the two of them, caught in a delicate dance of unresolved feelings. Cleo took a step back, seeking to distance herself from the force of his presence. Yet he advanced, taking her chin gently but firmly, tilting her face toward his. "You can't keep pushing me away. Not anymore," he whispered, his breath mingling with hers, igniting a fire between them. Her heart thundered, a mix of fear and longing. "Malik, if we—" "Let it go," he interrupted, grounding her with a fierce intensity. "Just for a moment. Feel." She inhaled sharply, and the world seemed to fade, the laughter of guests shrinking into the periphery. The pure, raw emotion, reflected in Malik's eyes, threatened to unravel her carefully constructed armor. "What if I fall?" she dared to whisper, vulnerability spilling from her lips. His gaze softened, and a smirk crept across his face. "Then I'll be right there to catch you." Then, almost against her better judgment, Cleo leaned closer. The air thickened, filled with an electric energy that buzzed like an unspoken promise. She could feel Malik's warmth enveloping her, and the faint scent of cedar and spice drew her in even more. Their lips barely brushed together as they hovered at the precipice of something profound, charged with unexpressed desires and unacknowledged fears. But, as if the world reasserted itself, a shrieking laughter erupted from a group celebrating nearby, and the moment shattered like crystal glasses on tile. Cleo jerked back, awareness washing over her like ice water. The chaos resumed its grip around them, the reality of the gala crashing back. Malik watched her, something fierce in his gaze, as they bated breath steadied. Slowly, he released her chin, but the warmth of his touch lingered like a soft brand upon her skin. "I'll be there for you, Cleo, no matter what." She nodded, her mouth suddenly dry, her heart still drumming a wild, excited rhythm. "I know, but tonight is about justice and everything else." Malik chuckled softly, the humor lifting their tension. "Well then, let me help you serve justice, one table at a time." Cleo couldn't help but smile back, the tension transforming into determination. "Fine, but no more wall leaning. We've got work to do." "Now you're speaking my language." He winked, and for a moment, the world outside faded as they swept into action, like partners in a dance neither expected but both needed. Scene 58. Navigating Challenges. Cleo stood at the window, glancing out at the bustling streets of London. The air was thick with the scent of fresh pastries and the sounds of merchants calling their wares. Yet the vibrant life outside felt worlds away, blocked by the weight of uncertainty pressing against her chest. She could see them, men and women engaged in their leisurely pursuits, laughter escaping their lips like whispers of freedom. Inside her, a storm brewed, full of doubt and fiery determination, battling for dominance. A warm presence enveloped her, and she turned to find Malik leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed. "You're scaring away your daylight," he said, his voice teasing yet layered with concern. She forced a smile, though it felt like a mask. "I need to think, Malik. There's so much at stake." Malik stepped forward, his eyes searching hers. "What's the worst that could happen? You're in control here, Cleo." Control. The word hung in the air, tasting bitter on her tongue. "Am I? When did I ever have real control?" Her frustration cracked like thunder, and he stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. Malik's brow furrowed, and the warmth of his presence ignited something within her, a mix of longing and defiance. "You've taken the reins. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." Cleo clenched her jaw. "It's not just about me. It's about your brother's legacy, our families, the darkness that lingers. It's suffocating." Malik reached out, his fingers brushing against her arm, a simple gesture yet electric. "Then we face it together." At that moment, a confrontation outside pulled their attention. A heated argument between two men escalated. A fist flew, landing squarely against a cheek. Cleo flinched, the violence unexpected and raw. Malik's gaze sharpened, and he instinctively turned toward the door, every muscle taut with readiness. "Stay here." "No, I'm not hiding anymore." Cleo moved to follow, her heart pounding with defiance. Underneath her resolve was a pulse of anxiety coursing through her, but the face of her old life of being unseen and unheard fueled her urgency. Malik shot her a look, half a scold and half a plea. "Cleo, you need to let me handle this." "What good will that do? Being passive hasn't served me. I won't sit back and watch. I want to be part of the solution." Her voice was steady, bolstered by determination, yet uncertainty flickered like candlelight in her eyes. He exhaled sharply, frustration mingling with admiration. "Fine, but stick close. Recklessness won't help either of us." They stepped outside as a small crowd began to gather, the air heavy with tension. The two men were trading blows, but Cleo's focus shifted to the other figures lurking in the shadows. 3 women stood nearby, anxiously wringing their hands, witnessing the chaos unfold. One caught Cleo's eye, her face pale with fear, a reflection of Cleo's own tumultuous emotions. "Someone's about to get hurt," one of the women cried, her voice tremulous. Malik's posture stiffened, his gaze darting across the scene, analyzing every inch of the fray. "We need to push through, offer help. That's the only way to de-escalate." Cleo nodded, feeling the throbbing in her chest give way to the impulse to fight, not just for the event itself, but for her own strength and agency. As they navigated through the crowd, she felt Malik's hand brushing her back, an unwavering support that anchored her amid the chaos. "There's always a price for change," he murmured as they reached the center of the commotion. "But tonight, it's not just about surviving. It's about confronting the mess head-on." In the next breath, Cleo squared her shoulders. "Then let's clean it up." As they stepped forward, the brawl momentarily paused, the eyes of the crowd momentarily shifting to Cleo and Malik. A clench of her throat signaled both fear and exhilaration. Their entry felt like a proclamation, a promise that they would redefine the narrative around them, together. And in this bittersweet moment of confrontation, where the stakes had never been higher and the emotional tension was palpable, Cleo sensed that her past had stiffened into a resolve as strong as iron, a promise that dismissed doubt entirely. All that remained to discover was how far they would go to reclaim their lives. "Let's show them who we really are," Cleo said, meeting Malik's piercing gaze, igniting a fire within them both. Step aside, power players. The lavish ballroom shone like a jewel under the delicate glow of crystal chandeliers, each facet twinkling like the secrets whispered beneath the ornate arches. The air was thick with the mingling scents of sandalwood and ripe fig, as elegantly dressed elites danced and conversed, their laughter a siren's call woven with soft melodies from a string quartet nestled in a corner. Cleo Seke stood at the periphery, her proud posture cutting a striking silhouette against the ethereal backdrop. Her gown, a deep emerald, clung to her figure like a whisper of ambition, while her dark curls framed a visage of determination. As she surveyed the room, her confidence flickered like the candlelight before the storm. Malik Orpheus appeared at her side, his presence as commanding as the polished mahogany that graced the hall. Yet it was the tension in his expression, a clenched jaw, an intensity behind his dark eyes that drew her attention. "Are you ready?" he murmured, the words slipping into the space between them like uninvited guests. "I was born ready," Cleo replied, her voice steady yet tinged with an audacity that turned heads. She met his gaze, the flicker of something unspoken radiating between them, igniting an undeniable spark that neither of them could ignore. As they navigated the sea of aristocrats, gossip danced in the air like fireflies. Cleo was keenly aware of those eyes that scrutinized her, a mixture of envy and disdain, especially from Tamsin, her former friend and a reigning queen of the Ton. Dressed in a pale blue gown that screamed sophistication, Tamsin arched a brow, her smirk sharp enough to cut glass. "Did you come to charm or to mock, Cleo?" Tamsin's voice sliced through the chatter, a chorus of laughter trailing behind her. "Neither," Cleo responded, her cheeks warm but her voice cool. "I merely seek to inspire a little uplifting in this little clique of despair." The laughter dissipated, curiosity replacing the mirth. Cleo noted Malik's tense posture, his hand subtly shifting closer to hers, offering strength without words. Tamsin's gaze captured Malik's then, a flicker of jealousy sparking as she declared haughtily, "You know, Malik, it's rather unwise to attach yourself to a woman so eager to rise above her station." "Is it unwise to align with someone bold enough to redefine her surroundings?" Malik countered, his voice low, a thrum of protectiveness threaded through it. "Perhaps it's more unwise to underestimate her." An unmistakable tension coiled in the air. Cleo's heart raced, not from fear, but exhilaration. In that moment, she felt as if she were setting her own stage, every insult and petty jab forging the path behind her. The edges of her lips curled into a defiant smile, and she took a bold step forward. "Tell me, Tamsin," Cleo began, her voice lilting above the murmurs, "what do you truly gain from belittling others? Is it worth your sense of self?" Tamsin stiffened, the laughter that once buoyed her deflating. "I gain nothing from your ignorance, Cleo. Yes, but perhaps you could gain humility if you stepped aside and allowed someone else to shine for a change." Cleo shot back, her spark igniting a newfound energy in the crowd that shifted their focus toward her. The air buzzed with anticipation as her words hung like a challenge. Behind her, Malik's expression softened, admiration mingling with something deeper. He leaned close, his voice a whisper just for her. "You're extraordinary." Heat surged through her, igniting 1,000 butterflies in her stomach. Cleo turned to him, her gaze unwavering. The world around them began to fade. "And yet I feel the need to prove it." "Then prove it," he challenged lightly, but in his eyes lay an earnestness that stoked the fire of her ambition. "Tamsin might love a good scandal," Cleo said, a playful glint now sparkling in her eyes. "But she will not claim victory tonight." Malik's lips curled into a smirk as he straightened. "No, not when you have set your sights on triumph." With that sentiment hanging between them, Cleo stepped farther into the thrumming pulse of the elite. The fabric of the ballroom seemed to thrum with energy as she found her place amid the glamour and intrigue, determined to carve her own legacy among the power players. The tightly wound knot of tension surrounding her melted as laughter and applause filled the space, echoing her resolve. And as she moved through, she caught Malik's lingering glance, that shared understanding, two souls united not just in ambition, but in the pursuit of something far greater than status. Here, under the shimmering chandeliers, amidst whispered slights and heartfelt cheers, a new chapter began. "Step aside, Cleo is here," she murmured, a promise to herself and to the world. Scene 60. Manifesting Dreams. Cleo Seke stood at the window of her modest art studio, the waning afternoon light spilling golden hues across intricate sketches strewn like whispers across the floor. The weight of her family's expectations had once anchored her in despair, but today it felt liberating to stretch the boundaries of her ambition. Each stroke of the charcoal embodying a piece of her newfound resolve. She recalled her last engagement party, a glittering facade that masked the rot beneath. The museum of her past, filled with false promises and hollow laughter, now lay behind her, yet the heavy echoes still reverberated in her chest. It was here, amid remnants and reminders, that she decided she would not simply react to the tides of others' decisions. She would fashion her own course. As she turned from the light, a soft, warm presence filled the room. Malik Orpheus stood at the threshold, the door half ajar as if hesitant to invade her space, though his very being commanded attention. He leaned against the frame, a mood of calm determination radiating from him. His eyes searched hers, studying the remnants of pain intermingled with courage. "Cleo," he began, his voice rich and low like dark chocolate, "you need to know something." There was an intensity in his gaze that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. "What is it?" Cleo replied, her voice steady, though she could feel a nervous thrill threading through her veins. Malik stepped closer, closing the door behind him, as if sealing off the outside world. "Your mother would be proud of you. I see it in everything you create." He held a sketch she hadn't realized she dropped, a delicate drawing of flowers, vibrant and alive. "It's beautiful, just like you." With a deftness she didn't expect, Cleo snatched back the paper, momentarily flustered. "You can't just waltz in here and expect me to believe flattery will suffice after everything." But he cut her off gently, the playful gleam in his eye belying the weight of their shared history. "I'm not flattering you. I'm admiring what you've become. You don't need to hide behind shields anymore." Cleo studied his face, searching for deception but finding only earnestness. The gravity of his words fell heavily. The corners of her mouth twitched in a half-smile. "And what have I become? A woman trying to escape a family that suffocates her." "Yes," he nodded, the tension in his expression softening, "but also an artist, a fighter, someone unwilling to back down, just like your mother." The pause hung between them like a drawn breath, heavy with unspoken truths. Cleo felt the quiet fire building in her chest, surging forward into the space that had long felt empty. "Are you sure you're not projecting your own dreams onto me?" she asked, the challenge playful now, but her heart was pounding, demanding to be heard. "Perhaps," Malik conceded with an alluring smirk, his posture shifting from reserve to inviting as he took a step closer. "But the beauty of art is that it resonates differently for each person. No projections here, just truth." Suddenly, the vulnerability in his demeanor washed over her, washing away the lingering darkness like the sun breaking through clouds. Cleo couldn't ignore the sensation, the way it opened the door to possibilities, to dreams waiting to unfurl. "I've been so focused on what others want me to be," she admitted. "What if I fail?" "Then I'll be here to catch you," Malik promised, his voice a warm ember in the cool drawings surrounding them. "Believe you can manifest your dreams." And just as her breath caught in her throat, he leaned closer still, the air thick with anticipation and the scent of sandalwood. In that charged moment, Cleo's defenses melted, the confines around her heart widening in tandem with the soft lift of his fingers, brushing through her hair. A spark ignited, electric and real. She closed her eyes as he moved closer still, the world fading away. Reluctantly, everything else blurred into insignificance, and all that mattered was the promise of closeness, his warmth, his scent, and the way he made her feel, alive and cherished. Their lips met, igniting an inward blaze of passion, a declaration of emotions they had both struggled to voice. As their kiss deepened, soft, searching, yet undeniably fierce, a new world unfurled, one where love and purpose coalesced, the boundaries separating them dissolving into shared dreams. In this moment, Cleo embraced the choice to be untethered. The kiss lingered, a vivid reminder of the future she intended to forge. She whispered against his lips, "Let's make our dreams reality." "Together," Malik affirmed, a smile brushing his lips, echoing the warmth that spread through her, and the promise of something extraordinary echoed in the silence that followed. Scene 61. The edge of tomorrow. The morning sky hung low, a haze of copper and gold threading through dark clouds that promised rain. Cleo Seke stepped out onto the cobbled streets of Westminster, the cool air awakening her senses, tinged with the scent of impending rain and the faint aroma of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery. Her heart raced, an echo of uncertainty chasing her steps as she looked towards the horizon of her new life, with its jagged ends pulled taut by worry and ambition. Malik Orpheus stood beside her, his fingers brushing against the brittle edges of a worn map, edge scorched and fraying. His brow furrowed, the deep creases reflecting a man laden with thought, yet his presence radiated a warmth that contrasted the brisk morning chill. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Cleo asked, her apprehension breaking through the brief calm that enveloped them. The neglected docks loomed ahead, promises of new beginnings coiled within the shadows of their past. Malik's gaze ran down the street, poised like a hawk ready to pounce. "Better than staring into the chaotic abyss of our former lives," he replied, a subtle bravado curling his lips. "We're stepping away from all that. You can't allow fear to shackle your path, Cleo." As he spoke, thunder rumbled in the distance, an unwelcome reminder of the storms that swirled within. Cleo huffed out a laugh, tension tightening her chest. "Easier said than done, Mr. Orpheus." She didn't mean to snap, but felt every fiber of her being taut with an unspoken weight. "You don't understand how hard it is to leave everything behind." With a dark glimmer in his eyes, Malik turned to meet her gaze, their reflections caught momentarily in the puddles forming at their feet. "I know more than you think." His voice dropped as he leaned closer, the warmth of his breath brushing against her cheek. "But you have to trust that this journey could lead us somewhere extraordinary." Cleo stepped back, a spark igniting in her chest. "Extraordinary? You make it sound so simple." The wind picked up, swirling around them, tugging at her skirts and whispering secrets of possible futures. "And what if we lose everything again, Malik? What if I can't guard my heart?" His face turned solemn, the corners of his mouth sinking into a serious line. "I won't let that happen. Not again." The intensity in his voice contrasted starkly with the lightness of the quiet street, filling the space between them with a palpable tension. A couple of passers-by crossed their path, their laughter ringing through the damp air, weaving levity where weight hung. Malik glanced over, his expression softening for just a moment. "Look at them. They are alive, together, carefree." He gestured towards the couple, holding hands beneath an umbrella, oblivious to the brewing storm. "This is possible for you too, you know, a different kind of life." "Is it really?" Cleo folded her arms, her heart catching its breath as the clouds thickened above. Fear spiraled within her again. "Do you think love is a luxury I can afford at the moment?" Her voice rose with a defiance she didn't quite feel, yet something in her longed for that answer. "Love is a necessity, not a luxury," he said firmly, the passion in his tone cutting through the murk of the moment. "You need to step away from that creature you've kept chained to your heart, the self-doubt. It's suffocating your spirit." Cleo took a step closer, heedless of the rain beginning to patter down, each droplet a challenge to her resolve. "And you think it's that easy? You expect me to just erase it all?" The crack in her voice betrayed her fierce facade, vulnerability spilling like ink across the page. "I know it isn't," Malik conceded, his voice lower, urgent as he stepped in close. "But we have to try, Cleo. You're stronger than you realize." In that heartbeat, something unspooled, a closeness neither had anticipated. The fissures between them began to mend anger, fear, and the myriad of unsaid words melted into the air. The thunder rumbled again, but here they were, two souls on the brink, rising above the chaos of their past. "Malik, you have your own shadows," she whispered, the rain kissing their cheeks, both wet and warm. "How can you even begin to think of saving me?" His expression caught in limbo, vulnerability flickering behind his guarded eyes. "Because I want to, Cleo. Because I need to." As the first drops of rain fell heavily, a crack of understanding echoed in the charged space between them. and Cleo felt the storm inside her quiet as her heart swelled with a daring hope. "Then let's navigate this uncharted territory together," she declared, her courage blossoming brightly against the thunderous sky. Malik's smile was a beacon of light within the tempest. "Tomorrow may be uncertain, but with you, I'll take whatever risks come our way." And together they stepped into the rain, the world around them washed anew, the edge of tomorrow beckoning them forward. Scene 62. A charmed existence. The late afternoon sun filtered through the gauzy curtains of the drawing room, casting a golden glow over Cleo as she gazed out at the bustling street below. The noise of carriages rattling over cobblestones blended with laughter from nearby children, a sound that wrapped around her like a warm embrace. In this moment, feeling the pulse of life outside her window, she contemplated the transformation that had begun within her. "What would they say if they could see me now?" Cleo mumbled, absently tracing the ornate embroidery on her evening gown, the fabric light and airy against her skin. There was a thrill in striding away from the shadows of her former life, away from the suffocating expectations of her engagement, to a man who never truly saw her. A knock interrupted her thoughts, and before she could respond, the door swung open to reveal Malik, standing tall in his tailored suit, the faintest hint of a smile dancing on his lips, a sight that never failed to quicken her heart. "Must you always interrupt my solitude in the most handsome way possible?" Cleo quipped, feigning irritation while her eyes sparkled with delight. "Only when solitude seems too joyful for your own good, dear Cleo," Malik replied, his voice a smooth baritone that vibrated in the air between them. "Come, let us make the most of your newfound freedom before it slips away." Cleo's breath hitched as he stepped forward, the light catching the dark waves of his hair, accentuating the inquisitive glimmer in his eyes. There was an electric charge whenever they were together, one that she had begun to lean into. Abandoning her hesitation felt like diving headfirst into a river exhilarating and terrifying. "Freedom, huh? And do you know who I truly am without the chains of my past?" she challenged, half playfully, half serious. "That is precisely what I hope to help you discover," Malik said, extending his hand toward her. "Now, allow me to guide you, my lady." With a mock curtsy, Cleo took his hand, letting him lead her into the grand hall where the sunlight bathed everything in inviting warmth. As they walked, they passed ornate portraits, their painted smiles forever fixed in a distant past. Cleo felt each pair of eyes watching her in judgment. "Imagine what they would say if they could witness us, a married lord and lady," Malik mused, keeping his tone light, but there was a deeper intensity flickering in his gaze. Or rather, a criminal and his accomplice. Cleo glanced up, a teasing smirk playing on her lips. "I'm fairly certain they'd gasp at the scandal. The daughter of the esteemed Seke family consorting with a known rogue." He squeezed her hand, and something shifted, a soft vulnerability, glimmering beneath his usually confident exterior. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Cleo paused, letting his words settle in the space around them. She turned to face him fully, their breath mingling in the warmth of the late afternoon. "Is that so?" Her voice dropped an octave, inching towards something raw and urgent. "This thing between us, what are we doing?" Malik's dark eyes locked onto hers, revealing the layers of turmoil beneath his nonchalant facade. "What are we doing? Perhaps we're discovering love in the chaos. You are discovering your strength, and I—" He hesitated, a flicker of remorse darkening his expression. "I'm trying to mend what's been broken." Before she could respond, he stepped closer, the world around them fading into a mere whisper. Cleo felt his warmth envelop her, drawing her in, and the air thickened with unspoken promises. She was acutely aware of the way his presence made her heart race and her breath shallow. Their eyes held for what felt like an eternity, and then, as if pulled by an unseen force, they moved closer together. Their lips brushed hesitant at first, igniting a spark that deepened into something feverish and desperate. Cleo sighed against his mouth, her fingers weaving into his tousled hair, as if anchoring herself to the moment. It was a kiss marked by uncertainty, yet punctuated with longing, the promise of intimacy balanced with the fear of vulnerability. In that embrace, they stood within a cocoon of hushed breaths and lingering silhouettes of past grievances. Time unraveled around them as they lost themselves in the complexity of one another. As the kiss gradually deepened, the weight of their unspoken truths lingered in the air, making the world outside fade to nothingness. Cleo pulled back reluctantly, breathless, her heart pounding in a rhythm that echoed their shared yearning. "What does this mean for us?" Cleo asked softly, searching his eyes for answers etched in shadows. Malik's expression softened, and a smile broke through like dawn illuminating a darkened night. "It means we fight for each other, Cleo, against everything that has ever held us captive." And as she stood on the precipice of this charmed existence, a thought flickered in her mind like the dying embers of a fire. Maybe, just maybe, she was braver than she ever believed. Scene 63, Challenges of the Heart. The grand ballroom of Hawthorne Manor shimmered under golden chandeliers, the air thick with layers of laughter, whispers, and the clinking of crystal glasses. Amidst the opulence, the vibrant burst of colors from swirling silks and velvets bespoke wealth, yet Cleo Seke sat in a far corner, her mind entangled in a web of doubt. The sumptuous scent of lavender and honey wafted faintly, barely lifting her spirits as she drummed her fingers against the delicate porcelain teacup. The festivities faded into a distant hum, leaving her heart pounding with tension. Across the room, Malik Orpheus, tall and enigmatic, watched with deliberate steadiness. His presence alone was magnetic. The way he effortlessly navigated the crowd, with warm laughter and winks tossed to friends of friends like confetti, only intensified the weight of her fear. Cleo leaned back in her chair, the embroidered fabric against her skin, both comforting and suffocating. She noticed his gaze seeking hers, penetrating and sincere, and she felt her heart skip, a familiar reaction that she struggled to dissect. "Cleo, are you all right?" Maria, her closest friend, nudged her shoulder, oblivious to the tempest brewing within. "You've been awfully quiet tonight." Cleo forced a smile, the tension in her jaw tightening even further. "Just considering my next move in this game of—" She hesitated, searching for the right words. "Emotional chess." Maria's laugh rang out, a bright note amidst the backdrop of swirling gowns. "Emotional chess? Dear, you could outsmart a king and his entire court with your strategy. Remember that dinner with the Deverugs?" Cleo could not suppress her smirk, recollecting how she had outwitted Lord Devereux earlier that week, making him dance to her tune. It felt like a lifetime ago, a version of herself she wondered if she could reclaim. "Perhaps it's time I leveled up. Or find a new game altogether," Maria suggested with a mischievous glint. "What's the worst that could happen? More hearts broken?" She waved her hand dismissively, a playful gesture. Cleo felt the heat rise to her cheeks. It was a risky sentiment. The stakes in her heart had never been higher. With Malik, the stakes were personal. Uncertainty tightened around her chest, reminding her of past manipulations and their bitter consequences. Malik approached, breaking through the crowd like a knight emerging from shadows. His dark eyes gleamed as they locked onto her with unwavering focus, sending a thrilling shiver through her body. "Cleo, may I steal you away for a moment?" His voice was rich and inviting, yet tinged with an undercurrent of intensity that made the room fade away. "Of course," she replied, rising to meet him. As she stood, he extended his arm, and the simple brush of fabric left her breathless. They moved to a secluded alcove draped in velvet, away from prying eyes. The hush enveloped them, and for a moment, all the noise and chaos of the world outside vanished. Malik's expression shifted, becoming earnest and vulnerable. "What's going on in that brilliant mind of yours?" he asked, slightly tilting his head, his gaze unwavering. Cleo studied him, taking in the faintest lines of concern etched on his brow. She clenched her fists, her heart thudding as she fought the urge to shield her true self behind a facade. "I feel pulled in two directions," she admitted, her voice soft yet tethered to her resolve. "Between the past and what I want now." "What do you want, Cleo?" His tone sliced through the uncertainty, gentle yet insistent. "A fresh start," she confessed, the words clinging like a fragile promise. "But the past keeps creeping in, tainting everything." He stepped closer, their breaths mingling in the intimate space. The scents of his cologne, an alluring blend of cedar and citrus, wrapped around her like a warm embrace. "We all have shadows, Cleo," he said, sincerity woven in his voice. "But you don't have to face them alone." Cleo searched his eyes, vulnerability clashing with hesitation. "What if I can't escape them? Or worse, what if I drag others into my darkness?" Then I will gladly walk beside you, he declared, his tone firm and unyielding. A silence settled, charged with unspoken emotions, and the world blurred around them. Through the warmth of his presence, she felt an urge to unravel beneath his gaze, to let the layers of pretense fall away. Malik, she started, but her heart's urgency silenced her. Cleo, he murmured, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. You're worth saving. The words hung in the air, palpable. Their eyes locked, and an insatiable desire coursed between them, igniting a flame of possibility as real and fierce as the chaos they faced outside the sanctuary of their moment. Scene 64, Conversations of Love. In the dimly lit kitchen of a stately yet weathered manor, Cleo Seke meticulously arranged a bouquet of wildflowers. The air buzzed with the smell of freshly baked bread, the warmth wrapping around her like a long-lost embrace. She traced her fingers over a particularly vibrant poppy, its delicate petals wilting slightly as if sharing her burden of mixed emotions. "Could you hand me the scissors?" she called without turning, her focus unwavering, striving for perfection in the jumbled colors before her. Malik Orpheus leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, an inscrutable expression playing at the corners of his mouth. "What makes you think I'll do your bidding the moment you call?" His voice, low and teasing, reached her as she glimpsed him through the corner of her eye. Cleo turned, her heart racing unexpectedly at the sight of him. "I'd say your chronic Boy Scout behavior clearly demonstrates otherwise." "Ah, it's a curse, I suppose." He stepped forward, the worn wood creaking beneath his feet.